clear that I didn't pop out of the womb from Judy.
No, you'd be way better at math. A lot shorter.
But there's not a second that I look at him and say, oh, that's my adoptive mom. There's no other face that's my mom. There's no other face that's my dad.
We weren't looking to adopt cross-racially. We just weren't, it wasn't one of the deciding factors for us. It's sort of age, race, and health in adoption, and I was looking for age first and health second, and race was a distant third.
The fact that we stuck out was the only part that I had issues with. When you're growing up, it's all about being like everybody else. You don't want to stand out, and so to say you're adopted means you're different. And yeah, when you're like a teenager, you don't want to be different. So you do things to avoid that. When I was in college, I became more comfortable with being different and got into my skin and was cool with telling people up front that I was adopted.
Freshman year, we go down to where he's at university and go to the first plays, and he's got a lead in the play, and it's the Black Theater Group. The audience is pretty black. We're pretty obvious little white folks there. That's kind of fun.
Minorities.
Yeah, we're loving this. And then I get done and I'm thinking, do I go up and say hi to him? Is he out at college? And he comes, I don't think I've ever told you this. He comes flying down the aisle and he gives me a big hug and he's saying, come on up, I want you to meet my professor. And I think he is so over this. I am so pleased. He's so okay with who he is and who we are. But you know, that's something that develops over time as it would for any kid. And so part of my advice to parents is to give that the time to happen. You know, just stay in the loop, stay with other black friends of kids. Black kids are doing the same thing, figuring out what it means to be black in this culture, figuring out who their friendships are going to be, figuring out how they're going to play language, figuring out all that stuff, how they're going to self-identify by class as well as race.
I didn't have an issue figuring out who I was racially because my parents did such a good job in getting me involved and living in a community that's diverse. It's extremely helpful to have neighbors that look like your kid. If you're a white parent and adopting a kid of a different color, you gotta have friends. You gotta have friends that look like your kid, and you have to have neighbors and people in their school that look like your kid. There was other biracial kids, which made it even better. And so I felt comfortable because I wasn't the only biracial kid. I wasn't the only adopted kid.
I hear people say, well, we're not prejudiced, it doesn't matter. You're not prejudiced, but that won't equip your kid. You need to see the world in color. I became so conscious of when the world was white. What was on posters, what's on TV shows, who's in my house. You know, I notice things that I as a white person don't normally have to notice. That's what white privilege is. And so if I'm going to be these guys' parents, I can't live in that white privilege world anymore.
There's a few things more that you need to know if you're having a kid of a different race. But it's nothing to be scared of. And when you're done with it, you're so much cooler. You really are. Look, she's like twice as cool as she would have been if it weren't for my sister and I.
For sure.